I'm going to help you heal all of the conflicts and drama in your life today. I know that's probably a really big statement, but I am so confident that by the end of this video, you're going to know how to handle conflicts in a healthy way, in a feminine way. Hi, beautiful soul. My name is Joanna, and if you are a spiritually hungry girly that is ready to step into her feminine energy and attract healthy love, then you're in the right place and you're going to want to hit subscribe because we're about to build this community and have so much fun together. Let's talk about conflict resolution, how to actually resolve conflicts. I have some really important tips that are going to change your life and the way that you relate to other people. Let's be real, relationships can be really hard. People trigger us all the time. And if we don't know how to handle these triggers and these conflicts, then it's going to turn into drama and gossiping. And that is what's wrong with our world today. And what so many women are struggling with, feeling in competition with other women, feeling judged by other women, feeling drama with other women. And a lot of that is really hurting our hearts as women because the deepest parts of our feminine soul want to collaborate with women, want to be in community with women. And it's time that we change this. It's time that we learn how to actually handle conflict in a healthy way. And truth is, you probably were never taught how to do this in a healthy way because you grew up in an environment where people just brushed off how they felt, maybe had conflict in 1 second, and then the next second everything's okay and it was never talked about. And then there's big blow ups because people are building resentment towards each other. Resentment is such a low vibrational energy that if you continue to harbor it, it's only going to hurt you. It's not hurting the other person that you feel resentful towards, it's hurting you. So it's time to let go of resentment and to lean into conflict because conflict is an opportunity for deeper intimacy and connection. You truly deeply crave connection because when you're feeling out of connection and out of touch with someone else and you're holding resentment, tell me how that feels in your body. Does that actually feel good? No, it doesn't feel good because our hearts want to connect with each other. Let's take a look at this really quick. You speaking up for yourself and being vulnerable is medicine for you. If somebody can meet you there, great. They're meant to. Awesome. That's somebody that I want to keep pouring my energy to. But if I'm vulnerable and somebody can't meet me there, they're not meant to be in my life. So at the same time, great. That's also truth, right? So it's a win-win situation when you don't focus so much on the external and other people and you're like, I'm going to use this as my medicine to use my voice and be vulnerable with how I feel because my feelings matter. Okay, let's break this down. So in this video, you hear me talk a lot about vulnerability and it being medicine. And so when it comes to conflict, the number one thing that is important for us to really embody is the feminine essence of vulnerability, of expression around our feelings, right? This is where a lot of people get stuck because another truth is that no one really taught you how to honor or communicate your feelings. You were probably told to suppress your feelings and that they don't matter and to stop crying, right? And so there was never a opportunity for you to learn, how do I actually voice how I feel with another person so I can let them into my reality? Vulnerability is what allows you to become an embodied woman. Vulnerability is what allows you to be fully seen for who you are and also fully seen for what you're experiencing. If we had more vulnerable women in the world, there would be so much more healing happening because vulnerability allows you to be your fullest self in every moment. So, what exactly do I mean by vulnerability? Well, if you are experiencing conflict with, let's say, another woman, and they did an action that made you feel a certain way. Typically, when you're feeling this in your body, this trigger, what happens is because you don't have a healthy understanding of how to process your emotions, you're probably going to want to fight, flight, or freeze in that moment because there is a response. There is a stress response happening in your body. Now, in the midst of conflict, if that stress response happens, it's so important for you to know what to do. If you're needing to take space to process, great, take some space to process. If you're needing to express that energy because it feels so overwhelming, leave the situation, go to the bathroom, and go shake that shit out, right? Because the easy route, the route that's easy but unhealthy, is to actually act out on the sensations that you're feeling in your body in that moment because you're triggered by this person, right? So the easy thing to do is to bite back with anger, or that's the fight response, or to run away from the situation and suppress yourself and shut yourself down and not even deal with it, which is the flee response, or to just like completely be paralyzed in that moment, shut your voice, contract, and get as small as possible. That's the freeze response. We want to move through those responses in our body. We want to honor that that response is coming up, but then we want to do something about how that situation made us feel, right? So, like I said, we want to go and express it with ourselves. But then, if you're noticing that that certain action that that person did is something that is creating resentment towards that person, where you feel hurt by that person, where your heart hurts, where now when you think about them, you feel very different than what you did before, or maybe you're ruminating on all of the things that you could have done or could have said, that right there is your sign that it's time to have conversation around what just happened. Hear me out. I know that that's scary, but on the other side of you doing that, there's going to be so much more intimacy and connection with this person. It actually allows the connection to grow, especially, like I said in my video, if they are willing to meet you there. This is something that I was talking about with one of my clients because she deals with feeling like she needs to shut down her voice when other women are being mean to her. She grew up in an environment where her mother was really mean to her. And so, because that's the environment that she grew up in, that is what's in her energy field. That is what she's going to continue to attract into her life until she starts using her voice to complete the trauma of her past. So when you start taking this action and you start choosing differently and you start using your voice and you start being vulnerable when it comes to conflict, you're healing a past experience of your life. You're healing what I call karma in your life from your childhood and what you grew up around. And when you heal that, you will notice that the next person or next people that you start to attract into your life are not going to be what you experienced in your childhood with either your mother and your father. They're going to be friends and people and partners that also honor their truth and also honor vulnerability and can meet you there. It's really, really beautiful what happens because we have to remember we are energy. The frequencies of our past are still living in us, and we will keep attracting similar frequencies and situations until we heal them, until we step into our vulnerability, until we choose ourselves and we choose differently. And so, if somebody can meet you there, great. They're gonna meet you in vulnerability and the connection will grow. If somebody cannot meet you there when you're being your most authentic self and expressing how you feel, which I'm gonna give you examples, don't worry about it. If you're like, what? I'm gonna give you examples on how to do that. But if you're being vulnerable and speaking your heart and speaking your truth and somebody can't meet you there, great. It's showing you that that person is meant to go get out of your life because you're healing a part of yourself and you're opening yourself up to new connections that are rooted in vulnerability and that honor you. So let's talk about how resentment creates a new image of that person. Something that the ego likes to do. The ego is your conditioned mind. The ego is the identity that was formed from 0 to 7 years old and then through the rest of your life. It is your perception of life based on how your family perceived life, based on the conditioning that taught you to perceive life a certain way. That is the ego. You have your ego and then you have your heart and your soul. You have your soul being that wants connection, that wants love, that wants to unite with others. And then you have your ego mind that is rooted in separation because it thinks that separation is going to protect you. And so we're constantly kind of battling between the two. And the ego is what gets triggered, right? And so when the ego gets triggered, what happens is that you start to form a perception of the other person that is rooted in falsehood. You start to create beliefs about the other person like, oh, she's just so rude. She's just a B word. No, I just don't like her because every time she just speaks like this or she does that. And then when you notice yourself talking about the other person in that way, compassion and love for yourself, but in that moment, you can be like, oh shit, that's my ego. My ego is showing up. What's actually happening here? What am I feeling triggered about here? Okay, yeah, I'm holding on to resentment. Okay, it's time to look deeper into that part of myself, do some inner work, and really start to connect back to my heart and what my heart knows to be true here, right? And so when you notice yourself talking about the other person and forming an image about them, that is your sign, especially if you want to keep this person around, especially if, yeah, maybe they hurt you a little bit, but you feel like it's somebody that is worth having in your life and somebody that you have been creating a connection with and somebody that everything's been good up until this point. Lean into that. And instead of just creating these images, this is what happens in relationships all the time. People just create images and images and images of their partner or their friends. And then over time, they create this persona of that person that is not rooted in truth, but it's rooted in the false illusions of their ego. They feel separate from that person. And then one moment, everything blows up and they create separation and they're no longer in connection with each other. And that can lead to breakups and relationship failures and issues. We don't want that. We want connection, right? And so if you find yourself in that space where you're forming a false perception of that person, let's look a little deeper. Let yourself express, spend some time with those emotions and sensations. Allow your body to move through them, to shake through them. Do some breath work to like, release, maybe scream into a pillow because you're feeling so angry and resentful. And then tap back into your heart and realize what is true and allow yourself to lean into creating a space for a deeper conversation with this person, which this is going to go now into the tips that I have for you on how to resolve conflict, especially if you're in one right now. This is going to be so juicy. In the beginning, it's going to feel really, really scary. It felt so scary for me in the beginning. I would shake. My voice would contract. My voice would constrict. My nervous system would just get into this state of activation when I first started to lean into conflict with people. It was really scary. It triggered me so much, but I had heard the same concept that on the other side, there's going to be more connection. And honestly, the most powerful part of this leaning into conflict is the fact that when you speak up for yourself, you activate more of your voice. You're saying, I love myself enough to be vulnerable. Like I said in that video, it's about it being your medicine. I love myself enough to be vulnerable. I love myself enough to honor my feelings and what's arising. And I love myself enough to stand up for myself and to speak them, but with love, right? That is such a beautiful piece of this, but it is going to feel really scary if you've never done it before. And now that it's been years, I think it's been like 3 or 4 years that I've been leaning into this with friendships and then with partners. It's still going to feel a little bit scary, but because you've done it so many times and you realize that on the other side, there's truth of deeper intimacy and connection with this person, or truth of, oh, this person's not meant to be in my life because they can't communicate clearly with me. Great. There's truth on the other side of this. When you know that and you embody that and you've had proof of that, it's not as hard. But now it's just you hearing me talking about this. So it might be a little bit scary. So, tip here with that, meet your nervous system where it's at. Maybe the first time or the second time and third time, fourth time that you lean into conflict, start practicing by texting the person. Or if it's a work relationship or whatever, emailing, writing it out, right? Meet your nervous system where it's at. For me, that's how it started. I had to start texting people after we hung out and I felt a certain kind of way. I would text them and be like, hey, this is really hard for me because I'm learning how to be more vulnerable. I'm learning how to use my voice and I'm learning more about my boundaries. And I want to express this to you because I care about our relationship. And right now I'm feeling resentment. I'm feeling fear. I'm feeling hurt. And I don't want to keep holding on to this. And so even though this is really scary for me to say, I'm going to say it. Example, when we were hanging out and you said this, it really made me feel this. And I don't want to hold on to that. And I want to talk about it more. There were many more times that people met me there than they didn't. Were there a couple people that couldn't? Yeah, because they didn't have the emotional capacity to. But the people that did meet me there were like, wow, I've never had anyone open up like that to talk about this. Yeah, let's Let's talk about it. I want to lean into this with you. And it was so beautiful to witness that. And my relationships shifted so much. I've also received so many compliments in this and friendships that were like, you taught me vulnerability. And because of that, now I use this in my relationships with my platonic relationships and my romantic relationships. And you never know what that vulnerability will do for somebody else. Because, like I said, it's medicine. So start meeting your nervous system where it's at and maybe start with text. Something else that I have done as well is I've sat with myself and I've breathed into my body and I've just asked my heart, how do I really feel about this? And then I have written it out. So when it's time to connect with the person in person, sometimes you're getting into that place where you're like, I'm good. I feel like I'm going to forget what I have to say. And although your ego will be like, well, that's silly, that's going to look stupid, just know that you're meeting your nervous system where it's at. You're creating safety in your body to be able to lean into something that's already really scary and really new. And that if the other person thinks it's silly, whatever, this isn't about them. This is about you stepping into your vulnerability, into your feminine essence as a vulnerable woman that validates her feelings. Every time you validate your feelings, even by writing things down and showing up in that way, you're giving love to the part of you that grew up thinking that her feelings were not valid. That gives you so much healing. It's so beautiful what happens. So meet your nervous system where it's at. Now, when you start graduating and you start connecting in person, I've done this with many of my friends, is I've told them, hey, I would love to know when you have some space. There are some things showing up for me about our relationship that I really need to talk to you about because I don't want to hold on to blank, fear, doubt, resentment, whatever. And it's really important for me to communicate these things with you. When do you have some space? And they'll let you know. And then you create a date or an experience. Like one of my friends and I, one of my guy friends and I, this was one of the scariest things is to like communicate like this with a masculine man. Like was pretty scary, but he is also super devoted to truth. He's super devoted to relational restoration too. So he understood and he was actually a big support in my life as I started to do this. So one time I was like, I'll make us some cacao and we can sit in like a meditation and like breathe and then we can talk about this. And it was so powerful and so beautiful what landed on the other side of that. And we did that a couple of times when there was like certain triggers showing up with me around men and I was able to like bring those to him and we were able to talk about them and move through them. And it was so beautiful. And one thing that he shares with me in this is that when you are resolving conflict in this healthy way, what you are doing is you are going from this person having their reality, this other person having their reality, right? Everyone's going to have their own reality and it's going to feel really true for each person. So when you come together and you share realities, what starts to happen is, oh, I can see your reality. You can see my reality. I can totally see how your human ego felt that way. And you can see how my human ego felt that way. And we can kind of just laugh about it because we're both just humans navigating this path and we can laugh about how we were triggered and then move on and find a solution together, integrate that solution together, and then our relationship can continue to grow and shift and expand into what this relationship is meant to be. Do you see how much more powerful that is than just being like, well, that person is just this and I don't want to be around them? That is a cop out. That is not rooted in what your heart truly wants, which is connection. My next tip, and I kind of already said this, but I want to like really, really, really ingrain it into your brain, okay? My next tip for you on resolving conflict in a healthy feminine way is to speak exactly on how you are feeling in that moment or how that experience made you feel. Do not point fingers and say, you made me feel this way. You did this to me. That is victim consciousness. That is a very low vibrational energy to bring into the relationship. The other person's going to feel attacked, you're going to feel attacked, and that's just going to lead to more conflict. When you come from a place of when you did this action, I felt this way. That is a completely different energy. It's not saying you made me feel this way. It's when you did this, it made me feel. So always starting with, it made me feel this certain way. And you come from a place of curiosity. I'm curious, like what was going on in your mind in that moment that created that action that made that created how I felt. I just want to know, like, what was going on inside of you. And that right there is a beautiful way to also, which is my last tip, invite that person into deeper intimacy and also their vulnerability. When you can invite that person into their vulnerability, it's probably going to feel really scary for them too, but there's an invitation. You're already in the midst of the conversation, and they're going to be like, you know what? I'm just going to drop my guard and actually communicate how I feel. Or they may completely avoid it. And like I said, that just tells you where that person's at, and it has nothing to do with you. Because the biggest thing about resolving conflict is that you're not doing it to receive a certain outcome from the other person. You're not doing it to manipulate their perception of you. You're doing it to create a vulnerable field in your relational field together, in your relational dynamic together. And you're doing it for you. You're doing it for you. Always do it for you and release the outcome, release the expectation. And if the fear shows up of, maybe this person will leave me. Maybe this person will abandon me. You have to ask yourself, am I going to continue to abandon myself so they don't abandon me? Or am I going to lean into my truth and how I feel and express that and not abandon myself and be okay if they leave? When you are resolving conflict and using your voice and being vulnerable, it is medicine for you. And it's going to allow you to expand and grow and become so much more radiant, so much more in your feminine essence. And then you bring this into your partnership and you allow yourself to be seen and heard because you're seeing and hearing yourself. And it's going to fill you up with life force energy, which is going to radiate out of your body and your being. And it's really powerful what happens. So let's wrap it up together. Remember, vulnerability is medicine. Conflict is an opportunity for connection and deeper intimacy with another person. And if they're willing to, they will. And if they're not, that's okay. Let it go. And the tips, remember, in the beginning, it's going to feel really scary. Meet your nervous system with where it's at. Start with a text, write down some notes, and start from there. Tip number 2, always communicate from the place of, when you did this, it made me feel. I feel. Starting with you, communicating how you feel. Tip number 3, that was kind of there all splitter splattered with tip number 2, is invite them into deeper vulnerability with you with curiosity. I'm curious, what was happening in your mind when you took that action that I felt hurt me? And then another really great question is, I'm curious, how do you feel about what I just expressed? Because then that allows them to come in and be like, yeah, wow, like that made me feel XYZ, and have a conversation around it. So I hope that this video really helped you with conflict resolution. Hope you took some notes. And if you didn't, go back, write down the statements that I said, and start using these, even if it's just through a text message in your next conflict. And please share with me in the comments what happens when you do this. I promise on the other side, there's so much magic and there's a deeper embodiment of your feminine energy when you do this. All right, queen. So I would love, 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 love your support as I grow this channel. Go ahead and like, subscribe, comment below. Let me know how this landed for you, and I will see you in the next video.